The mountain crumbled. The earth shook. To the streets the people took, screaming in vain, fleeing in fear, as fire and ash rained down near. The sky turned black, the sun disappeared. For weeks on end the darkness leered, a once great kingdom now undone, and all that remained was death and none. Then from the depths they came, fiends with bodies writhing in flame, their corruption spreading like wildfire, leaving no one safe from their unholy desire. 1,000 crimson eyes glowing with hate, mayhem and destruction their only fate. No place was safe, no land secure, hope reduced to a memory, a vision obscure. Amidst the rubble and broken earth, where evil creeps and chaos gives birth, none of the great cities defiantly stands, cowering with their priests shaking hands. Frail defensive runes against certain doom, the city walls bound to be their tomb. Each passing day more people fray, trying to forget a world in disarray. Some have turned to darker ways, in the shadows they spend their days. To the fiends they devote their deeds, in their name they sow their seeds. Their twisted rituals a foul abomination, their fervor a mark of utter damnation. With each day their numbers swell, a cancerous growth, the realm's death knell. The elders whisper tales of old, of legends and myths, of stories untold. Desperate souls turn to them for hope, for something to grasp, a way to cope. The burned stones, they say, are the key to unlocking secrets lost in history. Powerful magic within them lies to shield the realms from demons' eyes. You had everything, now you have naught, but the power and the will to persevere against the creatures that have wrought the destruction of all you held dear. Each step you take echoes through the night, defying the darkness with all your might. Through all your afflictions you press on, unyielding from dusk until dawn. Welcome back for another episode of Errant Adventures, the solo actual play podcast where stories are told at the speed of dice. With me, Steve Morrison, your game master and solo player. Now come on, let's grab the dice and see where our story goes. Welcome back for another episode of Errant Adventures, and that evocative introductory poem comes from our new miniseries game, Tales of the Burned Stones by Fari RPGs. Any of you who listened to my mini campaign for Stoneburner will recognize this game, as it was created as part of the Kickstarter campaign for Stoneburner. So this is, instead of a science fictional universe where dwarves are fighting against demons, it is a fantasy universe where dwarves are fighting against demons, but other people can fight against demons too. And it serves as something of a prequel to Stoneburner as a game. So I thought, coming off of season 3, that it might be fun to jump into a little bit of fantasy. So having really enjoyed my time with Stoneburner, I definitely wanted to take a crack at Tales of the Burned Stones. So what is Tales of the Burned Stones? Tales of the Burned Stones is a free, solo-friendly dark fantasy role-playing game of journeying and dungeon delving. In this game, inspired by Diablo, The Witcher, and The Warded Man, players assume the roles of resurrected raiders who are brave and foolish enough to delve into the ruins of the derelict kingdom. Located next to Mount Baram, the ruins lead to endless demon-filled tunnels filled with stories, mementos, wealth, and lost artifacts. Well, that sounds fun to me. So let's create a character and get to some of those endless demon-filled tunnels filled with stories, mementos, wealth, and lost artifacts. So we're going to roll our new character's resilience to start off. That's our health, our hit points, if you will, from the D&D parlance. And I'm going to roll a d4 and add 2 to my result. Hey, I rolled a 4. So we are looking at starting with a resilience of 6. That sounds pretty good to me. Roll your coins. This is how much money we have. So I'm going to roll a d4 and multiply it times 100. A 1 this time, so unfortunately I'm rich on health, but not in coin. Roll or pick a heritage. Well, I think you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to roll a heritage. So there are 6 choices on this table. So let's roll a d6, see what we get. A 6, an orc. Yes. I was secretly hoping for orc. As much as I'd love to play another dwarf, I feel like orc will be a lot of fun. Next, we roll on a background. Of course, you can invent, you can pick, or you can roll, but again, I think you know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to roll a d8 as there are 8 options here. A 2, Strider, agile and resourceful. And roll your skills. Your character uses 3 skills to perform risky actions. Each is associated with a die rating that ranges from a d4 to a d12. The skills are strength, dexterity, and willpower. To determine your initial ratings, roll a d4, a d6, and a d8 on a flat surface. The die that is farthest away from you is your strength, the closest is your willpower, and the remaining one is your dexterity. So the d4 is closest to me, so that is willpower. The d6 is furthest away, so that's strength. And the d8 is dexterity. Actually works pretty well for Strider being agile and resourceful. Your character starts with a single d6 main weapon. Use a higher die if more heroic adventurers as a lasting item. So in Tales of the Burned Stones, much like in Stoneburner, you have 2 different types of items. You have items that are static and remain with you, and they have a die associated with them that you step down every time you use it and roll, but you're not running out and depleting that resource when you get down to a d4 and below. And then there are other items that do deplete as you use them and you can lose them. So this weapon is going to be the weapon that my orc Strider is going to keep with him pretty much at all times. And this table has 10 options. There's actually 2 tables here. There's a light weapon and a heavy weapon. And since he's agile and resourceful, I think I'm going to go with the light weapon table. So I'll roll a d10. I rolled a 10, which is a rapier. So he is definitely not fitting my picture of what an orc in this world would be. And that is awesome. I'm excited about that because it means that I get to envision orcs being something different than the stereotypical brutish big creatures. And that excites me. So then you're going to pick an ability. So your character has special abilities which allow them to perform powerful stunts. Look at the abilities table for your background and pick one that seems fun. If you're not sure which one to pick, take the first one, but do feel free to design your own. So I'm going to look at the Strider abilities, and there are 3 here. There's the Pathfinder. When looking for a way through unfamiliar terrain, you may immediately roll with a good position. Costs 0 steps on a die. A Bullseye. When you are throwing or shooting something and require high precision, you may immediately roll with an excellent position. Costs 1 step. Or Spotter. You may look for a weak point in someone or something's defense. Roll a d10. On a 1 to 2, you find a weak point and future rolls can be done with a good position, but you've been spotted yourself. On a 3 or 4, you find a weak point and future rolls can be done with a good position. On a 5+, you found multiple weak points and future rolls can be done with an excellent position. Costs 2 steps. Those are all really, really cool abilities, but I think I am going to take the advice and go with that initial ability of Pathfinder. When looking for a way through unfamiliar terrain, you may immediately roll with a good position. Now that we've selected an ability, we're going to pick our pronouns. I am going to just play the he, him orc, and then we're going to roll some details. To better help define what you look like and who you are, you can roll on the following tables to generate some ideas and traits. So let's roll a d12 and find out what our frame is like. 5, compact and muscular. Let's see what the head looks like. 2, narrow and triangular. I suppose that means he has very angular features. And let's roll for hair. 11, a top knot. Classic. A memento. Rolled a 9, which are bangles. So he has maybe copper bracelets on his wrists. Maybe they were a gift. Can also roll on appearance, virtues, flaws, financial background, motivation. So let's just keep rolling, see what happens. Appearance, an 8, glamorous. Oh, it's a very suave and debonair. Virtue, 6, patient. He's patient. And the flaw, 1, arrogant. Perfect. What was his financial background like? 11, an exiled noble. And what is his motivation? Come on, classic. Security. Okay, not quite what I was hoping for, but I am, as you can say, rolling with it. As a note, I probably don't need to say it, but of course you are welcome to pick any of these rather than roll on them or make up your own. But I do love a good random table, so I just can't help myself but throwing some dice and letting it determine what my character's like. And that is basically it for character creation. We have established our skills, we've established our heritage and background and some of the details. And really the only thing left is to give this fellow a name and figure out where he's starting out. So let's go ahead and roll on our name oracle here and get a sense of what this fellow's name is. I'm going to roll 2 d20s. I'm going to put a couple segments here together. A 6 and a 9. Mintor. Mintor. It's a little too close to Minotaur for me. So Tormin, or if I flip them around and do 9 and 6, I get Zarfal. I'll take Zarfal. And let's give him a surname as he is an exiled noble. 1 and 2, Silent Blade. Or 2 and 1, Brightwind. Zarfal Brightwind. Yeah, let's go with that. That is sufficiently fantastical for my tastes. So we have Zarfal Brightwind, an orc strider who is compact and muscular, has a narrow and triangular head with a top knot of dark hair at the top, copper bangles on his wrists, which are probably wrapped down with leathers to keep them from jangling while he's creeping around. He is of glamorous appearance, which means I think that his top knot is well kept. His skin is a dark green but clear of complexion, and he is patient as a virtue. He is arrogant as a flaw. He was an exiled noble, and his motivation is security. And now we have to figure out where Zarfal Brightwind begins his quest and what he is going to face. Fire and ash fall from the sky as Zarfal Brightwind's eyes flicker open. He looks up towards the sky, consumed by fire, by smoke, by ash. He blinks a few times and tries to sit up, when a gentle hand touches his shoulder and presses him back. He groans as his entire body feels as though it was engulfed in an inferno. As he lowers himself back down to the ground, a voice says, "Wait, don't get up yet. You have been... well, if I'm being honest, you were dead. But I brought you back." Zarfal Brightwind blinks his eyes again and turns and looks to the woman who first spoke. "What did you mean I was dead? I don't doubt you. As you see, I feel as though I have been dead. But I am clearly not dead now." The woman who wears a veil over her face shifts back a little bit, dusting some ash off of her cloak, and says, "No, You are no longer dead, but I found you here, lifeless, and I brought you back. There are others, but so many have died." And she looks in the direction of the great mountain, Mount Baram, which even now is still groaning, shuddering, and spewing forth fire and death. Zarfal once again rallies himself and sits up, staring at it and said, "Is that the thing that killed me?" "Yes, I'm afraid so. I've never seen the like. It rained fire down on all around the mountain. I think perhaps a village to the west may have survived. Perhaps we should go there and see." "Yes, I do not wish to remain in the shadow of this mountain, lest it take me from my living reality and return me back to the place that you said I was." He again rallies himself and sits the rest of the way up. The woman touches his shoulder once again, and there's a strange infusion of energy and life into him. "Who are you?" Zarfal Brightwind asks. "I am a sister of the Eclipse, and I am here to help you." "A sister of the Eclipse? I am not sure that I have heard of you before." "Perhaps not, but it is fortunate for you that I was passing by and saw your body." "Yes, why me? And not..." At this, he turns and looks at a pile of burnt-out corpses to his right. "And why not those? What is it that you seek from me?" "They were too far gone to bring back, but you held out. You must have been on the outskirts of the blast. Do you remember it?" Zarfal thinks for a moment, trying to recall his last memories, but what he experienced is as clouded in haze and ash as the world around him. And trying to recall the last moments that he breathed before the fire and ash came fills him with pain and possibly fear. And so Zarfal shakes his head and says, "No, I cannot remember. Perhaps give me some time. For now, sister, perhaps you are correct and we should depart this place." And so, the Sister of the Eclipse helps Zarfal Brightwind to his feet. His armor, his clothing is burnt and mottled. There is one thing of his old life that remains, and he sees it glinting in a pile of ash. He bends down and he picks up a rapier, and he looks at it and he says, "You were mine. I remember this. Yes, this was mine." And he looks for leather straps to strap it on, but it's just a scabbard in the sword. So he carries it with him. And the two of them walk away from Mount Baram. And as they're walking, Zarfal sees that there are other women in cloaks and veils who are picking through the devastation around Mount Baram. He gives the Sister of the Eclipse an appraising look and says, "There seem to be many of you passing through this way. One might wonder if you knew there was some apocalypse about to happen. Tell me, Sister of the Eclipse, what is your purpose here?" She's silent for a moment, and then she says, "We have all had visions of fire and ash, but we did not know what they meant. We didn't know what was going to happen. We all just felt a disturbance in the flows of energy that surround us all. A voice in the darkness calling us here, to Mount Baram. We would have been here sooner, but we were waylaid on the road, and I do not know if it was the gods' will or some cruel twist of fate, but if we had arrived earlier, perhaps we would have been able to stop whatever happened here. Or perhaps we would have been caught in the destruction as you were, and so many others. And so we make our way through these fields, seeking those who are close enough to life to save. You were one such. I hope there are others. But for now, I must get you to safety. Sister, do you have a name? Daira. Sister Daira, I confess I am befuddled. I am in your debt as one who was dead and now lives again, but I also feel a certain concern that I am one that you saved and that there are others who have also perished. Do you have any inkling of why this happened? Do you have any conception of what caused this catastrophe? And if you do, can you point me in that direction, that I may enact revenge for all those who are too far gone to be saved? Sister Daira shakes her head and says, I don't know for sure what happened, but I know that there are terrible things within that mountain. And I sense that if you wish to discover what happened truly to Mount Baram, you will have to enter those tunnels. Very well. Then let us go and find safety for a time. And then I will set my eyes upon this mountain. I will see what depths I might plumb. So the two of them walk away from this blisteringly hot, molten, killing field surrounding Mount Baram. They walk for something close to an hour before they reach a small village. There are others here, covered in ash and dust. It's clear that they were far enough away that they could outrun the destruction raining down on them. Eyes wide, hands shaking. There are many who are looking around as if seeking some explanation. Members of the village are passing out small crusts of bread and wine skins amongst the survivors. And so as they enter, there's a murmur that goes through the assembled survivors as they see Sister Daira, and they see Zarfal Brightwind. Zarfal looks around at them and says, Greetings, fellow survivors. Can anyone point me to the lord of this village? The mayor, the leader, whatever they may be? I would have words with them. So, is there a leader here in this village that would be open to talking to Zarfal? I think that's very likely, so let's go ahead and use our question oracle and roll a d10. A 2. No and. So no, there is no leader in town who would be willing to talk to Zarfal. Does that mean that there is a leader in town, but that leader is unwilling to talk to Zarfal? Or does it mean that there is no leader and the leadership of this village is gone? Maybe they were at the mountain. Zarfal doesn't remember what happened in the lead up to the eruption of Mount Baram. All he knows is that he was in close proximity to the mountain before it exploded. I think it's possible, and in fact, based on that result, I think it's likely that he was attending some sort of gathering in the shadow of Mount Baram, and that the leaders of this small village were also there. And so they did not survive the explosion. And he looks around and just gets blank stares back from the people. Maybe one of them passing by says, "No, sir, the leaders all went up to the mountain. None of them have come back." "I see. Well, that is concerning. Can anyone tell me what they saw? What information might you give me? I wish to return to this mountain and see what truths I may discover there. But I need some guidance." So he is going to ask around, try to get a sense of if any of these other people who survived saw what happened or have some idea of what happened, what went on at the mountain. So we're going to use the sparks, and I'm going to roll 2d6 to get a theme. 1 and 2. Loyalty. And 3 and 1. Survival. Loyalty and survival. So I think that one of the survivors says, I'm not part of the leadership here, but I was in the mayor's retinue, and we went up there because there was a collection of mages who were having a conclave in the shadow of the mountain, and the village leaders were concerned that they were consorting with powers beyond our understanding. So they went to speak to them, and they were doing something. They were chanting, and the village leaders tried to get them to stop. And then there was fire. It spouted from the mountain, and those mages, they went into the mountain. As fire rose up and some of us ran, those mages, they escaped into a tunnel at the base of the mountain. I heard a great roar come from that opening even as I fled. Zarfal looks at him and says, "My friend, do you think you could point out this tunnel opening for me?" The young man looks at him, and there's fear in his eyes, and he shakes his head and says, I don't want to go back to that place." Zarfal leans forward and places a hand on his shoulder and says, "Young man, your leaders are most likely dead, and whatever killed them retreated into that mountain. There is no guarantee that they will not return and lay waste to the rest of your village. Please, help me. And I will help you. I will help your village. Remain safe from these mages. Please, help me." And I'm going to roll a check. So I'm going to pick a skill or an item, roll its die. If an ally helps you, they also make a check, but share the same risks. Take the highest die and interpret the results. Part of this game, much like the Stone Burner game, is you've got a bunch of skills and items that all have different dice associated with them. You roll that dice, and then you have a list of possible results. Something different in this game is positions. If your character is in an excellent position, you roll twice and take the higher. If it's a good position, you roll one step higher. If it's a fair position, you perform the check as normal. If it's bad, you roll twice and take the lowest. If it's dire, action is not possible at this time. So what kind of position do we think that Zarfal is in this conversation with this villager? I think the villager is afraid and definitely doesn't want to go back to that place, which makes sense, and I think would normally lower his position in this encounter. But I also think that this villager understands that what Zarfal is saying is true. That if someone doesn't go and try to take care of these mages, it's possible that death and destruction will come out to the village and they will be in trouble. So I'm just going to leave this as a fair position. I don't think there are enough positives here to bump it up to good, but I don't think there are enough negatives to drop it down to bad. So I'm going to roll my d4 and hope for a high roll on this because we're using willpower. And that's the skill that I'm using here because I don't think strength or dexterity makes sense for this particular thing. This is about connection with this villager and trying to convince him to do something. So we're going to roll our d4. I rolled a 1. You fail or succeed with a major complication. And I think what happens is he says, I can't go back there. It's too hot and I can't think there. And look, I'll draw you a map. I'll try to describe the area around the tunnel, but I don't even know if that tunnel's still there. There was stuff raining down from the sky. Please don't make me go back there. Please don't make me go back there. Zarfal just nods and says,
I understand, and I will not make you return to that site of destruction. I will not force you out into the world. No, your guidance, your words will be enough for me.
And so he will listen. He will hear what this villager has to say, get a sense of, generally speaking, where that tunnel was. And then I think he is going to spend some time and rest and try to recover his energy, maybe eat some food, drink some water. I think he is going to spend some of his coin and he is going to buy himself some leather armor because his armor got burned away. He'll probably buy some traveling clothes as well. So that's about 45 coins worth of material. But should he buy a short bow as well? Maybe to help him hunt a little bit? I think so. So we're going to take another 25 coins out of there. So that's going to leave us with 30 coin. So he now has armor. So we can mark that down in our gear. His rapier is lasting. I don't think his leather armor is because it's just mundane leather armor. So I'm going to set it at a d6 worth of leather armor. And then we can also do the short bow. And for that one, I think I am going to set it as a d8. And, I may think about this a little bit, but I think what I'm going to do to represent this is it's not a lasting item. Again, I think lasting items to me read as something that's going to be more magical and that has lasting relevance to your character. So if I get this short bow all the way down below a D4, I'm not going to erase it off the character sheet, but I think what that represents is that he's out of arrows. And unless he finds more arrows or he finds some way to purchase more arrows or recover arrows, that he is not going to be able to use the short bow. I think that makes a certain amount of sense in my understanding. So he's going to spend some time resting. And then he is going to, once he has woken in the morning and there's still ash floating in the wind, and there are more refugees, survivors arriving from around Mount Baram, and a few more of those Sisters of the Eclipse have arrived. Zarfal Brightwind is going to rise early in the morning. He is going to speak with Daira, the Sister of the Eclipse, for a brief moment and say,
Daira, I wish once again to thank you for what you've done for me. You have saved me and restored me to life. Now I must take my leave of you as I go to the mountain to seek my fate. If I discover what happened in there, I assure you I will set it right.
Daira nods and says, I believe you will. And I wish you luck, Zarfal Brightwind. If you need anything, you know where I am.
I appreciate it. And so I bid you adieu.
And he's going to turn to face Mount Baram and begin his trek back towards the mountain in search of a tunnel entrance that will lead deeper into the heart of the mountain and possibly toward whatever or whoever caused the destruction of Mount Baram. Thanks for listening to Errant Adventures, and thanks so much to Tabletop Audio for the lovely ambient sounds and music throughout the episode. If you enjoyed the show, please spread the word, and if you want to support the show directly, leave me a review or buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/errantadventures. If you want to interact with me, I'm at Errant Solopod on Twitter and Instagram, or you can email me at errantsolopod@gmail.com. I also post campaign-related materials on my website, errantadventurespod.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.